Dear Patriots, before the news starts, please subscribe to our patriotic channel by clicking the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up to this video. Don't forget to leave your opinion below in the comments section. Share the news on Facebook and Twitter so you friends see it. Thank you.
GOP scrambles to avert another election dumpster fire. National Republicans are moving to head off another special election fiasco, this time in a deep red Arizona congressional district teeming with retirees that would never register as even remotely competitive in a normal election year. 2 weeks after the party's stunning defeat in a conservative district in southwestern Pennsylvania, Republicans are funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars into Arizona's 8th district, which President Donald Trump won by more than 20 percentage points in 2016. The National Republican Congressional Committee on Monday launched a coordinated, $170,000 TV buy with the campaign of candidate Debbie Lesko, according to a source familiar with the purchase. The Congressional Leadership Fund, a deep-pocketed GOP super PAC, is planning to spend about $100,000 on a phone and digital effort aimed at turning out conservative voters. Early voting starts on Wednesday. The Republican National Committee, meanwhile, is spending about $280,000 on a field operation to bolster Lesko. She's running to replace GOP Representative Trent Franks, an 8-term congressman who resigned from his seat last year after reports that he pressed female aides to serve as a surrogate mother. Trump's political team is also considering a range of options for getting involved in the race. Republicans insist the efforts are precautionary and that they fully expect to prevail in an April 24 special election. Two senior party officials who've reviewed polling in recent days said Lesko held a double-digit lead. But the fact they feel compelled to spend at all shows yet again the fierce headwinds Republicans are facing in a midterm cycle dominated by Democratic enthusiasm, a scandal-plagued White House and poor presidential approval ratings. This is a red seat, so they shouldn't normally have to spend anything on this race, but Republicans are on defense, said Mike Noble, a Republican pollster based in Arizona, adding that there has been a heightened awareness and sense of urgency after Conor Lamb's victory in Pennsylvania because you get in trouble when you're asleep at the wheel. Noble said he expects the seat to stay Republican, but the margin will be closer than it would be normally. Lesko, a former state senator, is running against Harold DePernay, a physician who's raised about $300,000 for her bid. DePernay has picked up some national support, including endorsements from former Arizona Representative Gabby Giffords and in Citizens United. The influx of national GOP help for Lesko shows that Republicans are obviously very concerned about losing this special election, said Jason Kimbrough, spokesman for DePernay's campaign. But Democrats acknowledge that DePernay has a steep climb in the central Arizona district, which encompasses a mix of small towns in the western Phoenix suburbs, including Sun City, a large retirement community that served as former Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio's base of support. A poll conducted by the Democratic firm Lake Research for the DePernay campaign found that Lesko leads by 14 points, and that 59% of surveyed voters view Trump favorably. A memo accompanying the poll noted that DePernay must win over Republican voters by double digits. During a debate that aired Friday, DePernay, a self-described moderate, said it will be tough, but doable to win crossover support from Republican voters. Trent Franks did not have a strong Democratic opponent in multiple cycles, and we don't really know how a strong Democrat can fare, said DePernay, who cited her support for strong and secure borders as one of her moderate policy positions. But local Republican operatives predicted that she would struggle in such a conservative district, which favors hardline positions on immigration and other issues. The way that she has articulated her immigration policies hasn't been moderate because she's strongly against the border wall, and that's what people want here, said Brian Anderson, a Republican consultant in Arizona. As much as she says she's a moderate, it's not the way that she has come across, and that's the difficulty for a Democrat running in a red district. Lesko, meanwhile, made building a border wall the centerpiece of her campaign messaging, airing a TV ad during the GOP primary that called the southern border a war zone. In the first TV ad of the general special election, Dupernay, a first-time candidate, casts Lesko as everything you hate about politics. The ad attacks Lesko for being under federal investigation for illegal money laundering to her campaign, a reference to complaints filed by one of Lesko's opponents in last month's primary that she improperly transferred campaign funds from a state committee to her federal account. But in a recent debate, Lesko called the complaint totally frivolous, and the work of her political opponents. Lesko faced similar attacks during the Republican primary. But the campaign finance complaints against her were overshadowed by a sexual misconduct scandal involving Steve Montenegro, her Republican opponent who was backed by Franks. A week before the February primary, Montenegro, a former state senator, acknowledged that he exchanged lewd text messages with a legislative staffer, including a topless photo from the woman. Poll Americans believe women over Trump on affair allegations. A majority of Americans believe the women who have alleged affairs with Donald Trump rather than the president's denials, according to a poll released on Monday. 63% of those surveyed in the CNN poll say they believe the women who have come forward with the allegations of extramarital affairs with Trump, while 21% say they believe the president and 16% say they have no opinion on the matter. The survey found that, overall, Republicans were more likely to trust in Trump's denials instead of the women, 41% to 31%, and that women put more faith in the allegations over the president, 70% to 54%. A majority of those polled also expressed support for efforts to free up the women who have reportedly been barred under non-disclosure agreements from discussing their alleged sexual relationships with Trump. 51% of Americans said the women should be free to discuss the affairs, while 41% said the so-called hush agreements should remain in place. The findings come on the heels of a highly anticipated 60 Minutes interview on Sunday with Stormy Daniels, the adult film actress and producer who said she had sex with Trump in 2006, an affair that the president's personal lawyer reportedly paid to keep quiet about just days before the 2016 election. The White House on Monday maintained that Trump denies Daniels' allegations. The president strongly, clearly and consistently has denied these underlying claims, Deputy Principal Press Secretary Raj Shah said at the Daily Briefing. The only one who has been inconsistent is the one making the claims. Karen McDougal, a former Playboy model, told CNN last week that she also had a sexual relationship with Trump before he took office and that she entered into a deal not to discuss it. Despite upheaval over Trump's reported romps with Daniels and McDougal, the CNN poll found that the president's approval rating had bounced back to its highest level since the 100-day mark of his presidency, with 42% approving of his job performance. 54% disapproved of Trump's handling of the country. The survey was conducted between March 22, when McDougal's interview aired, and March 25, when Daniels' sit-down was broadcast. Trump's approval rating, however, remains below that of all his modern-era predecessors at this stage in their first terms, CNN found. The CNN poll surveyed 1,014 adults on landlines or cell phones and has a margin of sampling error of plus or minus 3.7 percentage points. Bolton and Pompeo might unleash Trump on radical Islam. The latest shifts on President Donald Trump's foreign policy team, including his choice of John Bolton as National Security Advisor, have rekindled fears among lawmakers and activists that the White House will further damage America's precarious standing in the Muslim world. Bolton chairs an organization that produces harshly critical commentary about Islam and Muslim immigrants, and he also has close ties to controversial activists often described as anti-Muslim. He succeeds Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster, who urged Trump to avoid a favorite phrase, radical Islamic terrorism, because it offends many Muslims as a blanket condemnation of their faith. Trump also decided this month to nominate Mike Pompeo, the current CIA director, as Secretary of State, replacing the fired Rex Tillerson. Pompeo has accused U.S. Muslim leaders of being potentially complicit in terrorist attacks and, like Bolton, has consorted with conspiracy theorists who have peddled false claims about Muslims. Tillerson, on the other hand, generally used cautious language when it came to Islam and had extensive business experience in the Muslim world. Both Bolton and Pompeo will now be working for a president who has alleged, with no evidence, that American Muslims celebrated the 9/11 attacks, and who has proposed banning all foreign Muslims from U.S. shores. Critics say the personnel move suggests Trump's worst instincts on how to approach the world's 1.5 billion Muslims will find receptive ears among his foreign policy aides. Either they don't even care, or they're intentionally picking people known for their Islamophobia, said Wael al-Jiyat, a former State Department official who now leads the Muslim American activist group MGOJ. We're very troubled. Groups such as MGOJ, Human Rights Watch and the Council on American-Islamic Relations are urging lawmakers to speak out against Bolton and Pompeo. Bolton doesn't require Senate confirmation for his position, but Pompeo will have to face a vote in that chamber. Some also have concerns about Pompeo's planned successor at the CIA, Gina Haspel, who is reported to have run a secret CIA prison in Thailand where suspected al-Qaeda operatives were tortured. Gina Haspel should be investigated, not nominated, Margaret Wong, executive director of Amnesty International USA, said in a recent statement. Some Muslim American activists describe a sense of déjà vu. Similar fears abounded in the early days of the Trump administration as the president installed several top aides whose rhetoric towards Muslims and Islam has drawn wide criticism. They included the National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, who once called Islam a cancer, political strategist Steve Bannon, who took a hard line against Muslim immigration, and Sebastian Gorka, who dueled with McMaster over the use of the phrase radical Islam. Their fears of a militant policy towards Muslims seemed confirmed when Trump, early in his presidency, imposed a travel ban on people from several Muslim-majority countries. But over the past year Flynn, Bannon and Gorka have all been forced out of the White House, along with some others who shared their views. Trump, meanwhile, has developed unexpectedly good relationships with some of the world's Muslim leaders, including top members of Saudi Arabia's royal family. But if there was a sense among Trump's critics that McMaster and Tillerson had been restraining his worst instincts, there is now concern that Bolton and Pompeo might encourage them. Bolton has longtime associations with activists criticized for their extreme views of Muslims. He wrote the foreword to the post-American presidency, The Obama Administration's War on America, by Pamela Geller and Robert Spencer, both prominent critics of Islam. Excelsior. Geller tweeted in response to Trump's announcement that Bolton would be assuming the post of National Security Advisor. Bolton also has close ties to another anti-Muslim activist, Frank Gaffney, who has promoted the theory that the Muslim Brotherhood is infiltrating the U.S. government with the goal of imposing Islamic law on Americans. According to The Atlantic, Bolton helped Gaffney gain a more prominent role at the 2016 Conservative Political Action Conference after years of his having been marginalized by the event's organizers. Bolton was a guest on Gaffney's radio show as recently as last month. On Twitter, Gaffney called Bolton's appointment a game-changer for Trump's presidency and said that McMaster and Tillerson have been among those who have fancied themselves the adults in the administration, determined to stop the president from doing what they oppose. Now the president will have actual adults who actually want to help him succeed, Gaffney added. Hallelujah. Bolton also serves as the chairman of the Gatestone Institute, which describes itself as a nonpartisan, not-for-profit international policy council and think tank and serves as a forum for harsh criticism of Islam. Articles on its website often exaggerate or misrepresent the religion and stoke fears of Muslim immigrants. In one posting this month, an author declared, falsely, that for Muslims, everything Christians believe is pure blasphemy. In another recent post, a writer argued, the UK is accelerating its Islamization at an ever-increasing speed. Bolton's own writings and discussions of Islam have been notably more nuanced, however. While Bolton doesn't hesitate to use terms such as radical Islam, He has tried to distinguish the religion's extremists from its mainstream adherents. "We are talking about politics and ideology here. This is not a question of religion," he said in one speech. "It's actually Muslims themselves who have felt the worst effects of Islamic terrorism and who suffer under its rule." When Trump, on the presidential campaign trail, proposed banning Muslims from U.S. shores, Bolton called the idea completely wrong. "That's just not consistent with our views about America and how we should operate," he said. A person close to Bolton said the former ambassador stands by his writings and speeches. The Gatestone Institute did not respond to a request for comment. Bolton's appointment as National Security Advisor doesn't require Senate confirmation, a relief for him because he has so many skeptics in the Senate, including some Republicans. When Bush named Bolton as his ambassador to the United Nations in 2005, he did so using a recess appointment to evade a Senate vote. Pompeo, however, is expected to face tough questions from Senator Bond during his nomination for Secretary of State. Many of those queries may focus on his past apparent support for enhanced interrogation techniques, or torture. Haspel already faces similar scrutiny, but his record of anti-Muslim comments and affiliation also is likely to come up. As a Republican congressman from Kansas, Pompeo in 2013 accused American Muslim leaders of failing to condemn the Boston Marathon bombings, saying their alleged silence has been deafening and that made them potentially complicit. Many U.S. Muslims denounced the claim as a false smear given numerous condemnations of the bombings issued by Muslim leaders in the U.S. and beyond. As a lawmaker, Pompeo fought to have the Muslim Brotherhood designated as a terrorist group and made numerous appearances alongside Gaffney. Pompeo also has ties to Act for America, which the Southern Poverty Law Center has said pushes wild anti-Muslim conspiracy theories, denigrates American Muslims and deliberately conflates mainstream and radical Islam. Pompeo was among the recipients of Act for America's National Security Eagle Award for 2016, according to the group's website. Act for America has always welcomed and included members and supporters of all faiths, who stand united under the same flag of freedom and support for Western values, Brigitte Gabriel, the group's founder, said in a statement to Politico. Mike Pompeo has been a clear leader in understanding the threats that America faces from rogue actors all over the world. While Pompeo's role as CIA director had already been of concern to U.S. Muslim leaders, they're even more worried about the possibility of him serving as Secretary of State. As America's chief diplomat, he'll be more in the public eye, more likely to meet with the leaders of the Muslim world and more involved in shaping U.S. foreign policy. During his confirmation hearings for CIA director, some Democratic senators were concerned enough to press Pompeo on whether he would discriminate against Muslim employees and safeguard U.S. alliances with Muslim-majority nations. Pompeo downplayed such concerns. Discrimination against any employee based on their religion is deeply objectionable and will not be tolerated, Pompeo pledged in one exchange. Such rhetoric hasn't assuaged Pompeo critics like the Council on American Islamic Relations, which has also condemned Haspel's nomination to replace him as CIA chief. Those, like Mr. Pompeo, who have expressed Islamophobic views and have been associated with an anti-Muslim hate group, or like Ms. Haspel, who personally oversaw the torture of detainees, should have no role in our nation's government, let alone at the highest levels of policymaking, CARE National Executive Director Nat Awad said in a March 13 statement. These appointments have the potential to harm our nation's image and our relations with key players in the international community.